County Gateway to Tomorrow plan. I think many of you know we've been in Graham County here all week and doing a lot of exciting plans and talking to a lot of you. So the ideas that I'm going to talk about are all draft ideas. They're still a bit rough, but they reflect a lot of exciting ideas for the future of the county and a lot of great things we've heard this week. So by show of hands, how many people have been to one meeting this week or have dropped into the community center somewhere this week? Great. So we've got a lot of good input. I really appreciate everyone. I know some of you have been here multiple times or every day, so I really appreciate your thoughts and you all spending your time helping us understand the county. I also wanted to thank our lunch sponsors, which are many, so I'm going to read them from my list. Sequoia Valley Center, Fontana Village Resort, Stanley Furniture, Great, Brookfield Energy, the Town of Robbinsville, the Town of Lake Santiva, Curve Grub, United Community Bank, and First Citizen. And there's plenty of food, so please feel free to get up and have a bite to eat.
What are we doing to sign in?
Yeah, there's a sign-in sheet going around. It's right there. So if you could sign in with your name as it comes around, and if you give us your email address, we'll add you to the opt-in email list, which will give you updates on this plan and everything that's happening. And this presentation will be up on the website, which is optinswnc.org. Can't remember that. I can tell you afterwards. And then you'll get an email if you're on our list.
Please sign in even if you already have, so we just have a record of who's with us today.
All right, so I'm going to hit a few highlights of the ideas that have come out of the week. 4 different areas I'll focus on. One is natural and cultural resources. Second is economic development. Transportation, which has been a big topic, and we'll end with some catalytic areas and what could happen in some specific areas of the county. I wanted to start with what we heard from local youth. We had a lot of focus groups, different property owners and people here this week. But we also had a group of high school and middle school students here, and I thought what they said was really important. So I wanted to start with that as the context for our planning here in Graham County. They were sort of divided. Some of them wanted to stay in Graham County. Some of them wanted to get out but hoped to be able to return to Graham County. All of the boys wanted to stay here. They felt like there was more for them here. Some of the girls were split about wanting to leave the county for opportunities. But several of them mentioned, I want to do something professionally that I can come back to Robbinsville and make it a better place. So I thought that was really important to hear. A lot of them focused on the community, just how tight the community is here and wanting to maintain that. We also really love the natural beauty and wanted to stay for that. But there were a number of things that they want to have to make it a more attractive place to stay. Those were better jobs with better pay, more things to do, more restaurants, mentioned a movie theater, and a lot of recreational opportunities. We also talked a lot about downtown, having more shops, restaurants, things to do there, specifically a clothing store or an outdoor goods store. And they just talked a lot about wanting to revitalize the downtown, the old Main Street, and different ideas that could happen there, making it a real town, a lot of excitement, a lot of things happening in walking distance. So that's what we heard from the students. I'll talk about the natural and cultural assets. We all know this. You all are here all the time, and we've had the privilege of enjoying Graham County for a week, so the land, the mountains are really the beginning of everything. That's our most important asset. So what we heard this week were the natural assets are really important. There's Kilmer, mountain biking places, the lakes, the Appalachian Trail, creeks, especially for their fly fishing value. There's also a lot of cultural resources, the scenic routes that are designated in just a lot of the beautiful drives that there are, the Snowbird area, Junaluska Museum, and Sequoia Valley in the center there. So those are the assets we heard about. We also heard about some issues and concerns, natural concerns. We heard about some of the gravel roads. The gravel will wash off and can pollute some of the streams. There were concerns about some cattle owners that might be causing pollution in the water supply. And we heard the same thing about some folks that are still on septic in Robbinsville. Some issues with that. I know the town's already worked to address a lot of those issues. In terms of cultural issues, we have concerns about the Junaluska Museum. which is just very small and has a very limited budget. It could be a lot more. And in general, Cherokee historic sites, there's a lot of them out there. It's really important, but it's hard to market those. Some of them because they're sensitive cultural sites, and a lot of them just that there's a lack of funding. We had, if you were here on Wednesday, we had a lot of ideas from previous plans about natural and cultural resources, and people stuck dots up on what they thought was most important. A lot of dots, but I wanted to highlight just two of the most important. One was to develop a tourism plan, think more in detail about the kind of things I'm talking about and what should happen in the future to promote tourism. And the second related item was supporting marketing and branding of nature-based tourism. So all of those great natural assets, how to sort of package those, advertise them to the public, and make the best use of them. So that was what we heard about natural and cultural resources. I wanted to focus on a few preliminary ideas that came out of our discussion. There's a lot more ideas, and there'll be a lot more in the draft plan, but I wanted to give some highlights today. One is the idea of a greenway. We know there's already a greenway plan, reimagining Robbinsville. The key link that's being worked on now is connecting the high school through town to Stanley Furniture. Recreation complex, again, what the youth said, if more places to play sports, more opportunities for recreation would be key, and finding funding to implement the goals of the recreation master plan. In terms of natural resources, I already mentioned branding and marketing would be really key. Working on promoting the water quality, the lake quality, by working with the watershed associations, and also thinking about some planning tools or regulations that might help preserve the natural resources that everyone values. And finally, in terms of cultural assets, again, working on a tourism plan to support and market all of those existing cultural assets. Stokoe Valley Center is a fantastic asset, a lot going on there. Provide continued support and continue to promote that. And think about more festivals, marketing the festivals and what already happens in the county together, but thinking about more festivals, especially in the off-season. We also had a focus group on health and aging. I wanted to touch on a few of those things because I think that conversation is really key, and we've heard a lot about those two issues this week. Just a few facts, a third of the Graham County population is obese. We heard a lot about access to jobs, which at first might not sound like a health issue, but access to jobs is correlated with poverty, and poverty is directly correlated with obesity and other health issues. So that's a really key health issue. We've had a lot of facts from the state about health that we shared in the focus group, and from what we heard from locals, things are a lot worse here than what that state data says. So that's a serious concern. And it's more of a concern in some areas than others. This is a map of the region that puts together demographic indicators of poor health, things like poverty, and ranks each census tract over which has more of these indicators of poor health. So it doesn't necessarily mean that people are healthy or unhealthy, but it means there's likely that. And you can see this is Graham County here, and the whole southwestern quadrant of the county ranked really low. Reflects probably a lot of the issues in the Snowbird area with diabetes and obesity and other things that we know about. Health isn't just physical health. It's not just things like diabetes and obesity. It's all of the components of the environment, social health, intellectual health, spiritual health. So the discussion in that group was interesting to pull out a couple of things Graham County should think about in the future related to those different things. Related to economic health, of course, the lack of access to jobs that I mentioned. Transportation, we heard a lot from people about being able to get to health care, either in an emergency that takes a really long time to get to a hospital, or just for daily needs, just basic preventative care. So that transportation piece is really key. We also heard about the county going smoke-free in public areas like parks. Physical health, of course, exercise is a really big component of physical health, and providing places for people to exercise is the best way to improve that. So continue to make Robbinsville and other communities more walkable, thinking about parks and trails where people can go walking. Social health, the farmers market is a great example of that, brings people together. I understand that it sells out and has been really successful, so continuing to work with that. And environmental health, the septic contamination is not just an environmental issue, but it's also a health issue if that gets into the public water supply. So those are comments on the natural environment and health. I'm gonna keep running through all of these areas just in the interest of time to get everything out. And then we have some stations around the room with our consultants in the various areas of expertise and opportunities for you all to ask questions and comment at the end. So I'll keep moving and we'll have plenty of discussion time at the end. Economic development. I wanted to start with the natural resources because that's really the foundation, the land and the mountains. But if anything's going to happen and if things are going to improve in Graham, it's because of the economy. That's the starting point for everything. So this is really important too. Just a few facts about Graham County. 20% of jobs today are in manufacturing, 15% are in construction. That's probably not surprising that those are the two big industries. But a lot of those are in a very small number of employers, like Stanley Furniture and the construction industry. So if things change, that those jobs could drop or go away. So it's important to think about a diverse job base. The average age in Graham County is about 44 years, which is 8 years older than the average for North Carolina. So we know the population is aging. Part of that is young people moving away or not having a reason to stay. They're increasing the average age. Unemployment, 12%, it's higher than the state and national average. Wages in Graham County are lower than the state average. We know there's a lot of second homes in Graham County, and we ran the numbers, and 26% of every home in the county is a second home. So that's a significant part of the economy, both for tourism and for the construction industry. We dug up some numbers on tourism, and in 2012, tourism revenues in Graham County were almost $25 million. So that's a huge industry. If you rank all the counties in North Carolina, that's 13th. In terms of tourism expenditures per capita. So that's a fantastic asset, a lot of money coming into the county for those things. You're third of the 7 counties in the region, you're number 3 for tourism spending. Not all the money is staying in the county though. We did a retail analysis, looked at how much money everyone who lives in the county is spending and where that's going. And there's about $34 million every year that leaves the county. People shopping outside, I imagine a lot of that's the Walmart and Murphy, just things that you can't buy here in Graham and you need to leave. But I think there's key opportunities to capture some of that, especially with shopping, retail, and restaurants. There's an opportunity to capture some of that spending from locals and tourists here in the county.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
That $12.51 median hourly wage, do you have any idea where that, from a perspective standpoint, what percentile that puts Graham County in the state?
What percentile that is?
Yeah, is that like way down to the bottom 5%, or is that about the middle, or?
I don't know without looking.
Okay, I'm just.
And there's more data in the analysis part of the plan that's online, so there may be something there that I'm not familiar with the details. So here's what we heard talking to people this week about economic growth. We heard about the importance of higher wage jobs. Some of those could be high-tech jobs. People put out the ideas of a call center, a data center, maybe intelligence jobs. Also workforce needs and training needs, better aligning the existing job sectors with the training that's happening at the community college and high school, thinking about health and hospitality and how to do those kinds of training, and small business training, maybe for existing small business owners to make sure they understand everything they need to know and have those resources. In terms of tourism, opportunities that were thrown out were scenic driving routes, crafts, outdoor recreation, and film, either things being filmed here or a film festival. And in general, just ways to extend the tourist season in the winter, bringing more people in the winter to keep those tourism dollars flowing year-round. Small business growth, we know there's a lot of opportunities for retail from those numbers I mentioned, the dollars leaving the county, but there's also a lot of other opportunities for small business, for agriculture, crafts, artisans. Some of those are already going on and are things that could grow in the future. In general, there was just a sense that we need to create an entrepreneurial environment, really focus on small business growth, making sure small business owners have the right resources, and focusing on the community cores, the towns, Robbinsville, Toccoa, Fontana, Lake Santiklo, and focusing on those as key small business growth areas. Put up some photos on Wednesday of small business and economic growth opportunities. I wanted to share these just because they're ones that got a lot of dots, which means that people thought they were important. The outfitter here and this photo of people tubing was really key, so focusing on the tourist industry is really key. The top right one is just a downtown shot, again talking about retail, restaurants, downtown revitalization. And the ale house there got a few votes as well, which is probably talking about restaurants and capturing some of that activity, some of the dollars that are leaving the community. So based on what we heard, some preliminary ideas for economic development. Again, the healthy environment for existing business, how to recruit new businesses, especially higher paying jobs, becoming a certified entrepreneurial community and building the support systems to support those local businesses, an internal system, just connecting small business resources, and again, working with Tri-County to add entrepreneurial small business courses, the kind of things that correlate to your local economy, add those into the curriculum.
How do you become a certified entrepreneur?
I don't know the details of that process. Do you?
It's a program through Advantage West. You have a local, you want like a local team that's invested in being the leadership team on that issue in your community, and they kind of take you through a process. I can't give you the actual steps that you take, and then by the end, you have this team equipped to help the entrepreneurs in your community.
Macon is the only one that's close by us right now.
In terms of building on the assets, especially tourism, natural resources, but also scenic drives and agriculture. Thinking a lot about the new retail businesses, again, targeting outdoor recreation type business. And the market analysis, which is available on the website, really breaks down all of the dollars that are leaving the community and what types of businesses those are in. So it's really key to look at that and see what the key items are. General merchandise is one, which is things like a dollar store, restaurants are another, but that money is leaving the community. So looking at those and targeting your business recruitment to those job sectors. A lot about revitalizing downtown, building on what you've got, not just downtown Robbinsville, but Tacoma and Fontana, focusing on their strengths, and working on those festivals and events to promote those centers. Marketing is really key. There was some discussion of this. A lot of people from the outside don't know what Graham County is, what are the assets, but having a brand of marketing, and that could be a logo, it could be a slogan, it could be a website, it could be all of those things. This is from Travelers Rest South Carolina, which has a lot in common with you all in terms of tourism, recreational tourism, natural assets, and that's a brand that they put together with different photographs and branding. So it's just one thing to think about. But the goal would be to create a consistent brand, coordinate efforts, so Tacoma is not competing with Robbinsville, but just a consistent brand for the county and for the region, to coordinate to with the region, Smoky Mountains National Park, and what the adjacent counties have. I should mention as I threw out these ideas that once we get to the detailed plan at the end of the spring, there'll be an implementation plan that lists all of these ideas and others that we hear today. Some of them you'll see are private sector things, something like a new restaurant downtown. Some of them are public sector things, like a new road improvement. And a lot of them are just a mix of public and private. So we'll put together a plan of all of the recommendations, different funding sources, things like the becoming a certified entrepreneurial community, how that works, and who's responsible. It'll be a master implementation. Transportation, we heard a lot about transportation this week. I know that's really important. And there's a lot of needs. Just the key needs that we heard are getting in and out of the county, improving the travel times, especially with regard to healthcare access and an emergency, being able to get to where you need faster. Places for safe passing of vehicles. If you're a local and you're behind someone like me who doesn't live here and maybe we're going 30 miles an hour around the curves, being able to get around. Making sure the system is more reliable and easy to manage. You know, a snowstorm can cut off your access from the county. Just one or two rock slides could almost entirely isolate the county. So we know that's really key. And also looking at traffic accidents, where those are happening, why they're happening, and ways to make the roads safer. So that's what we heard. With regard to the bigger picture of connecting the county to the outside, there are three sort of primary areas that are an issue. Stokoa Gap and Topton, just because of the topography there, thinking about highway improvements and better connections is really difficult. Also in Robbinsville, there's not a lot of traffic in Graham County, but where there is traffic, especially in the summer, is on the bypass in downtown Robbinsville. So we spent a lot of time focusing on those three areas. There are also a number of constraints from cultural resources and environmental resources. When we think about transportation improvements, we have to realize there's a lot of public land, natural forests with sensitive natural environments. There are a lot of cultural environments, Cherokee burial sites, the Trail of Tears, historic buildings. And I know you can't see this map. The maps that I'm showing up here will be available at the transportation table afterward if you want to see the details. But the point of the map is there's a lot of resources that are sensitive that you have to think and work around as you're thinking about transportation planning. We ultimately came up thinking about the bigger connection related to Corridor K and the proposed connection from Stokoa to Andrews. We ended up thinking about a hybrid option. This is just a preliminary option. It's not a detailed corridor. You can see the lines are pretty thick on the map, but we just wanted to think about what are different ways to connect. Both different options for potential connections, you'll see multiple lines up there, and hybrids for what could happen on each of those lines. Is it improving the existing road? Is it some form of new road or significant road? There's a lot of different options that we can think about. As we thought about those options, the principles that we stuck to were those things that we heard in the beginning, thinking about traffic, safety, connectivity, also different modes, not just driving, but other people who don't drive being able to get around, so a balanced approach. We want to meet the needs without excess. We want to come up with the road system that meets your needs and not go beyond that. Being flexible with design solutions, something that's safe and attractive and again supports multiple users. We also just want to think bigger picture about quality of life, preserving the mountains, preserving tourism, preserving access to the towns. Those things are really important. Laying lightly on the land so we can get the connections that we need with the minimal impact on the natural environment, and maybe even taking advantage of road improvements to highlight the natural environment, to highlight the cultural resources, highlight the history. So a few ideas that show that could be used for this hybrid scenario are looking at improvements to existing highways. So in a place where it is constrained, using widening. Here you can see there's two existing lanes like there would be on a two-lane highway, but in the middle of a passing lane in different sections or on an uphill so that cars can get around in a shoulder. But the land adjacent is preserved. There's not a significant impact as larger widening of the road. We also looked at a larger widening of road sections, but this one shows terracing where the higher portion is up and the lower portion is down. What this means is you don't need as big of a cut into the mountainside. You don't need as big of a retaining wall. So this is just a little lesser impact on the natural environment. And another option we looked at, which is more expensive but could be appropriate in sensitive areas, is a viaduct. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the Limco viaduct. And that's an example where the road is entirely suspended. So there's minimal impact on the forest floor, but you can still get the roadway through. So at this point, we haven't identified specific places where all of those improvements or different road sections might be appropriate, but we're interested in hearing from you about what you think is most appropriate. So there's three scenarios that we looked at in terms of the travel time and access to sort of compare them. One is the way things are today, driving from Andrews to Robbinsville is 20 miles and it takes you about 28 minutes, unless you're a real fast driver. The other one is the Corridor K, the A9 proposed route. That would cut it down to 10 miles and would take 12 minutes. And then this hybrid route that we're looking at would be about 15 miles or 18 minutes. So right in the middle there, significant travel savings, but not as much as the Corridor K proposal. So what are the pros and cons of the existing proposal, the way things are today, the existing road, the Corridor K as proposed, and the hybrid? Today, there's no additional routes. I mentioned that, if there's an accident or a roadslide, there's no way to get out. And the pro, I guess, is just that it's the lowest cost. Keeping things the way they are would be the lowest cost option. The proposed alignment for A9 has the highest construction cost, the highest impacts to the natural environment, and in part because of that would have the longest implementation timeline. So those are two cons. In terms of pros, it has the best savings in terms of travel time, the best increase in travel speeds, and it creates additional route choices by doing those new alignments and keeping the existing road. You'll have multiple routes. The hybrid solution is sort of right in the middle. There's a moderate amount of cost and impact, so that's both a pro and a con. Creates some new routes, so that's a pro and a con as well. Some improvement in travel speed and time, so that's definitely a pro. And because there's lesser impacts, it might have a shorter timeline for implementation. The other thing we thought of beyond that big connection was just how to make the best use of the system that we have and sort of link things up in the town. One thing we heard was about better signage when you come into the county, having signs that direct you to downtown and Socoa and all the destinations. There's an example of some directional signs from other communities. Another example would be safe driving techniques. That could be signage, shows you how fast you're going, makes people slow down, especially folks who don't know about the curves. That could decrease the accidents. A park and ride was another idea we heard, especially because there's so many commuters outside the county that could save money for people on gas and decrease the amount of traffic on the roads and people have to park and ride. And signage, like you can see this one, could help provide better information if there is a road closed, if there is the road is slowed down or a rock slide. Just a sign to know that would save you a lot of miles driving around. So without any improvements, that signage could really help make better use of what you have. Also, within the town of Robbinsville, we heard a lot about truck traffic. And I'm sorry to say we didn't come up with the perfect solution, but we came up with several alternatives that are on this map. Option A, B, and C. I know you can't see them, but again, they're on the map at the back. I won't go into specifics because you can look at those afterward. But the idea was how do we provide alternate routes for trucks and other traffic through town, so not everyone is focused on one route. So I think there could be a lot of good ideas there. One option we looked at, this is US 29 in the middle, south of town. I guess we're cut off a little bit. This right here at the bottom is where the new credit union is. And one potential option for a truck route that would bypass downtown could intersect the town here. This could also be a great opportunity because of that new road coming through for some new development to happen there, because there'll be a crossroads. So this is just showing some potential development. This connection could go all the way through town and connect to Stanley. And the final piece we thought about transportation-wise and connectivity was greenways. We know there's already a walking trail at the high school, but more places for people to walk and bike and a real greenway system that connects those places. Oh, and I almost forgot the bypass. The Rodney Orr bypass today. We thought about rebranding that as the Rodney Orr Boulevard. We know there's been some traffic calming putting in, but what we're talking about here is something a lot more impactful. Things like trees, wider sidewalks, really places for people to walk, and something that makes it less of a bypass, less of something just to travel, but really has a great aesthetic impact and can feel like the new main street for the town. So the road section stays the same here. There's still the same number of lanes for the traffic to get through, but there's a lot of improvements that would make it look a lot nicer and be a lot safer place for people to walk and bike. So those are all of our functional areas that will have stations around the room. We applied a lot of these principles in a few catalytic areas. These are areas that are really key for the county, and we wanted to just apply some of these ideas, brainstorm. We got a lot of ideas from you, and see what happens in these more focused areas. I want to emphasize that what I'm showing is just one potential long-term vision for the town. We're thinking 25 years or more out. We're showing different concepts for what could happen on private property. There's more than one option. We're not trying to tell anyone what to do on their property. We're just showing different options for what could happen. So any of this would require the cooperation of property owners. And there's a lot of public-private cooperation for things like improvements on the bypass. And everything we heard has had a lot of input from you all this week. So I'll start with Socoa. Had a lot of good conversations about Socoa, and what we heard was there's a lot of great things there now. It's already a hub with the Socoa Valley Center, a lot of heritage, cultural events, things going on there. It could really become a gathering place, though, especially the gymnasium that's not being fully used could become more of an event center for retreats. There could be some housing there, or some rental cottages to really build some more energy in the sort of downtown Socoa area. Maybe also a lodge or a hostel. There's not a lot of lodging options there if you're passing through town, so that could be a great option. We talked about artists and residents using the gymnasium to host artists either seasonally or year-round and provide them space. And also sort of agriculture and agritourism, focusing on what's already going on there, and maybe some more beekeeping, winery, demonstration farms, and other things. Also connections to the AT, to the Appalachian Trail would be really key. So here's a quick sketch of what things could look like. This is the Socoa Valley Center today, and this is the gym that's not being used. So this drawing shows that being re-envisioned as more of a community gathering space. The area around here could be filled in with the cottages that I mentioned, and also a lodge or a hostel. Out on the highway, the little storefront that's abandoned now could be repurposed and used. Maybe the example on the right from another community is showing what it could be, capturing some of that tourist traffic as they come through to do bicycle rentals or kayaks or for motorcyclists or whatever the traffic there is. And these cottages could be a great example of just a little small rental cottage. Could be a really neat place to have folks stay and contribute to the energy there in Stokoe. This is, if you're here this week, you know we had our illustrator here drawing pictures, and she always comes up with these really great images. These will all be on the website next week if you want to take a look. But this is one potential option for what it could look like. What you're seeing there on the right is the lodge and some sort of new lodging, and then the cabins there, small rental cabins on the right, surrounded by this, or surrounding this new public green space. Really be a cool place for people to gather and a big tourism draw. We also spent some time in Robbinsville, of course, the core of the town. This is the aerial view of the town today. You can see a number of things just from looking at this. The bypass, as you know, looks like bypasses in a lot of other towns. There's not a lot very unique or very appealing to tourists there, even though there's a lot of good businesses and a lot of good bones. There's a lack of connectivity, especially up to downtown. The old downtown is sort of isolated from that. And there's a lot of mix of land uses, some of which are not appropriate for a downtown environment. This is a rough plan for what Robbinsville could look like 25 years or more in the future. There's a lot of detail over here on the wall that you can explore later, but I wanted to run us through just some of the key ideas in this plan. Start at the bottom. This is the intersection now where 129 and 143 come together. One easy way to improve traffic flows there would be to put in a roundabout. You don't have to stop for the red light, but the traffic keeps moving. This particular roundabout is large enough that it would accommodate truck traffic, so I think that'd be great for traffic and summer congestion, but it would also be a really great gateway as you came into the town to see that roundabout. Second option we thought about was the existing building that the town, what is the town? It's the sheriff. The police station has moved into, so you already have sort of a civic presence there on the bypass. What if there was an additional building on the front of that that really had a presence on the street, a feel of a town hall, to take some of the town offices that are spread out now and consolidate them there? You could also have a town square. Some of the new development could face this new public space that would really be like a square, a new gathering place for Robbinsville. We heard the option of a cinema that would face onto that. So really the idea is creating a lot of energy around that square and on the bypass, sort of a new downtown for Robbinsville. Not that we're getting rid of the old downtown, because I'll talk about that in a minute. Moving up the bypass a little bit, you can see the town square there. The streetscape and having those trees and aesthetic improvements along the bypass would be fantastic, really give it the feel, again, of a boulevard. Would be really transformative. The other thing that could happen on private property outside of the streetscape is having those buildings that are built up to the sidewalk. Right now, if you go down the bypass, you see mostly parking lots, whether you're walking or driving, and the buildings are sort of at the back. If they came up to the front, which is true in a lot of small downtowns, it's true in your old historic downtown, there's something interesting to look at as you walk by. The stores are right there, so everything is oriented to the sidewalk rather than oriented to parking lots, and that really creates a lot of energy. Something else that would really help that is there's a lot of curb cuts now. There's a lot of driveways to all of those businesses, so the sidewalks are just really interrupted. If you could consolidate those into one drive that takes you into a parking lot, you'd have a lot more continuous sidewalk and just a cleaner street. Looking up a bit behind the town square, we heard a lot, not just in Robbinsville, but across the county, about people wanting more affordable housing options. It's especially relevant to the youth and wanting young people to be able to stay in Grant County, be able to buy a house, raise a family here. So we thought about a number of different options and put them on the ground as to how they might look here in Robbinsville. There's some larger homes, just traditional housing for those people that want it, to keep those places, but there's also some smaller houses that focus along the village green. And there are Katrina cottages, which are very similar. They're manufactured housing, they're very similar to mobile homes, but they've been used in other communities really successful to provide that affordable housing that doesn't have the feel of a mobile home, that feels much more like a regular house. We also looked at townhomes and senior apartments, so the whole picture, a lot of diverse housing to attract that diverse population, and especially the senior piece is key. As we know, Graham is 8 years older than the state average, and so giving a place that seniors, if they can't drive as much, they want to be downtown where they can walk, maybe they don't want to mow 10 acres anymore, providing more options for them to be in a town environment. Here's a couple pictures. If you were here on Wednesday, you saw some of these pictures up, and these were some of the more popular ones. The cottages, the cluster cottages up on the right there could be here where you see the village green. The idea is just houses that focus on a common green space. So you get that feel of a yard. It's not too urban, but it's a common space, so you don't have to maintain it yourself. Katrina cottages, you can see an example here from another community, and they're really modular. You can do different things. These are great. They've got front porches on them. You can stack them and do 2-story. So again, the flexibility and affordability of that manufactured housing, but using it to build a community. And finally, moving up to the current downtown in Main Street, which we're calling Uptown, since it's up the hill. We want to preserve what's there and really focus on revitalizing that, giving a lot of energy to that, and having sort of the center up on the hill for the old downtown, as well as a downtown feel down on the bypass, and looking at the connections. I should have mentioned on the larger slide, a lot of what you see in here is about these street connections. Right now, there's not a lot of ways to get from the bypass back up to downtown and through the existing streets. So this, as it redevelops, creating those connections would really link those things together so that downtown isn't as isolated. A few ideas for downtown, some apartments. You're up on the hill there, a lot of great views of the town and the valley, so maybe some apartments there could take advantage of that. Bring your people in. The courthouse, it should stay, it's the center of downtown, great for administrative uses. There's a lot of counties that have left their courthouses and moved their administrative centers outside of the downtown, and that really takes a lot of life out of downtown. So we think it's really key to keep that courthouse there. And maybe there's an opportunity even for some of the other county services to move into downtown. The Snyder's building is empty now, and could be a great chance to house some of those administrative options. Parking is going to be the key as downtown revitalizes, new shops, restaurants, residential and county offices. There's going to be a need for parking, so we'll have to figure out how we think about that as that happens. Reimagining Robbinsville, which is the beginning of a lot of the ideas that we shared this week, talks about a new visitor center in downtown to focus on the historic downtown. That's a good idea, but in the short term, before downtown is revitalized, we think it'd be a great idea to have a small visitor center as you come into town. I think everyone knows where this is. 5 Points on US 29 as you're coming into town. This is what you see. Here's your welcomes to Robbinsville sign. But mainly what you see is a parking lot and the signs. So not a great welcome. It doesn't tell you a lot about the town. The creek is actually just there to the right. The signs are not in the way. You can see the creek. So we took a quick look at what this could look like if there was a visitor center there. So again, that property becomes a small visitor center. Maybe it's also an outfitter that rents kayaks and canoes. The creek is right there. You hop in the tube, and it could be really an activity hub for downtown. There could also be just cleared up views so you can see that creek as you come into town, and a multi-purpose trail. Again, we talked about bike and pedestrian connections, so that would be a great way to lead into the visitor center there. This photo on the right is from Helen, Georgia. They've really made a lot of their creek there as an activity center. So the tubing here in Robbinsville, that potential visitor center could be another way to generate activity in the downtown. But the outfitter could have a lot of things for other sports as well. We thought about the creek, which winds around downtown, as you know, and ends up at Lake Santigua. A lot of it is not suitable for tubing now, and so we thought about a couple of improvements that would make it more suitable for that. There's a greenway that we're proposing all the way along the length of the creek for biking and walking, but just other improvements. There's a rental takeout a little closer to Lake Santigua, north of town, where people could start here at the visitor center and work their way downtown, down through town in the tubes and take off there. It could also be a great opportunity for housing, again, some rental cottages built on the tourist industry there. And the final site that we looked at was Airport Road, south of town. This looks at an option, I showed earlier what it might look like if truck bypass or a new truck route came through that property. This looks at an option if things stayed more like they are, what could happen with those properties. Just to through a few ideas, again, this is sort of the gateway to town. This is one of the first things you see as you're coming in from Andrews or Atlanta, somewhere south. The idea is to focus on agriculture. Maybe there could be a roadside stand, very successful, that can capture some of that tourist traffic, bring them in, showcase agricultural land. That valley there, that lowland there is really some great agricultural land, so we could do that. But the Phillips and Jordan could be preserved, the recreation areas that they have remain, and maybe there's a chance for new businesses in there. Maybe there's a chance for an event center or something, again, to capture tourists and focus on the agriculture and agritourism. So that's all I have to say. I appreciate your patience getting through everything. What we have now is a few stations around the room. The plans, more detailed plans for Robbinsville and Socoa are up here on the wall. And a few other things that I didn't show, a drawing from Massey Branch that's worth looking at. In the back, some of the ideas about economic development and tourism. In the corner here, transportation, some of the ideas about greenways and also connections and 401k ideas are out there. And here, thinking about natural environment, heritage resources. So if you have any thoughts about what I've said, if something doesn't strike you and you have a better idea or disagree, we'd love to hear that. If you have any questions about the specific areas, we'd love to hear that as well. So let's break now and take as much time as you need to do those stations, and then that'll be it. We won't adjourn from the Thanks, everyone.